Yeah, we're going to read this Enhancement and Dessert by Thomas Douglas, which is forthcoming in Politics, Philosophy, and Economics. Oh dear, I'm losing it already. Intel says no, yeah. Yeah, recent developments in neuroscience have pushed that out considerably further. Yeah, I don't think we're that close yet. I mean, of course I could be proved wrong, but I don't think we're going to get anything at human level intelligence for a while, because it's just and I can just put my cards on the table. Most of the theories we're using now, and I always say I come from an argument theoretic side. Like, I'm looking at the arguments and the theories, and that's what I look at. Most of our stuff is not all that new in the last 100 years. There's some new ideas, but it's mostly going back 200, 300 years. We're not that far out of, like, the modernists from just a few hundred years ago. And so those ideas are not actually going to, I don't think they are powerful enough to make like human brains as they are. Like, I just don't think the philosophy is there. And so that means we would really need a finger of God, a bolt of lightning to do something we don't know about yet to make a general intelligence. But yeah. So yeah. But that's the thing, yeah. It would be hotter than the sun. Like, these are things that are beyond our current capabilities. So it's like, yeah, maybe it's doable, but like in some very, very, very unusual circumstance that we don't really understand what's going on. Okay, but anywho. So we're going to read paper. As always, feel free to ask questions, and we'll just figure out how this goes as it's going. Suppose that two budding scientists, Atkinson and Baird, gain entry into a highly selective doctoral program by attaining the two high scores in the entry examination. Atkinson managed this feat only because she used a cognition-enhancing drug, a drug that allowed her to concentrate more intensely than all the other candidates. Baird succeeded without pharmaceutical assistance. Her success was chiefly attributed to her exceptional conscientiousness and efficient preparation. Okay, so we've got two people. Someone who took Adderall or whatever that is that makes people study, and the other person is just born that way, that can really, study when they want to. And they put the time and effort in. Now suppose that two cyclists, Campbell and Donahue, so we've got A, B, and now C and D, so Campbell and Donahue, tie for first in the Olympic road race. As a result, each receives many accolades and attractive sponsorship deals. Campbell's exceptional performance was due in part to his use of a new doping substance. Donahue's was achieved without doping. Many would find the pharmaceutically assisted achievements of Atkinson and Campbell to be problematic in a way that those of Baird and Donahue are not. Yeah, so the people who took the drugs may be problematic, and the ones that didn't, they just worked real hard, are not problematic. Was she born with it, or was it methamphetamine? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, what is it? It's the ADHD drugs. If you don't have ADHD and you take the ADHD drugs that help people with ADHD focus, then all of a sudden you become a focusing machine, and that's all you do. And so it's like it makes you hyper focus. And people do this to study, get pass their final exams, because they have to learn a whole lot, and then they don't they don't get distracted. Okay, some have been prepared to generalize from such cases to other enhancements. One sec. Drop the music even more. That is, other biomedical interventions intended to augment human capacities from an already healthy, disease-free level. They have argued that that enhancements are generally, specifically always or almost always, morally or prudentially undesirable in some respect that more traditional means of augmenting our capacities, such as education and training, are not. Yeah, so it's like, why is taking a drug that helps you study morally worse than getting more training? Like, here's a pill versus here's go to a lot more training. And what's the difference? The author says, in what follows, I introduce and scrutinize a view that I believe underpins much of this opposition to enhancements. This is the view that the desert thesis, individuals who succeed with the aid of enhancements generally, specifically always or almost always, deserve the goods associated with that success less than otherwise similar individuals who attain the same success without enhancements. Okay, so it's saying one is seen as cheating and they don't deserve it. That's why it's called cheating. Henry O'Brien says, when I was in grad school, I went into counseling, got prescribed with diagnosed with ADHD, which I didn't have, and they wanted to give me Adderall. The psych thought experiment should be on it. It was an eye-opener. I mean, this is what people do. A lot of people go get themselves an ADHD diagnosis, or they have a friend with ADHD and they, take their pills or whatever. Um, yeah, it's like, and then they use them strategically when they need to study a lot. But like, that's it. See, why would the psych think that everyone should be on Adderall? Like, that's a very weird thing. Yeah. Anywho. But like, yeah. It's like, is it actually good for people? Like, is that person a transhumanist that everyone should be on Adderall? I think they did a study a while back that, and I'm sorry, this is a hazy memory. Basically, if you take too much Adderall, you get not as good at other things, like other aspects of your abilities, eventually start to degrade. You start getting, sluggish in other areas. You can still study more, but like you get sluggish in other areas. And so, I don't know. Unreal Brian says he seemed to just kind of think that it made everyone better performing. If you're only looking at certain metrics, I could see how that would, you could believe that. Like if you're only looking at like ability to pass tests, then maybe yes. Like everyone could use to be able to study more. Yeah, so you tried it out and it didn't work for you. Not everything's going to work for everybody, but yeah, like fair enough. So, but like I said, if you start looking at different metrics, maybe then it doesn't look the same that it's going to be so good for you. Sinister Max says it has to do with dopamine and dopamine agonist functions of amphetamine. Okay, I don't know anything about this, to be fair. Ivan Neo says 6 demon bag, see things no one else can do. No, see things no one else can see, do things no one else can do. Yeah. It's like, yeah. But like this is where we're going. Like people are gonna have different abilities, different skills. I was just watching a Cyberpunk's 2077 stream earlier today. And it's like, yeah, guy can move. Some people can move faster than everyone else. Some people can jump higher. It's like you're going to be able to see things. You're going to be able to do things. Hey, musician at home, what's up? How's Kim's stream? I had to leave Kim's stream to come here. Anyone who does not know is one of the best, or at least my favorite, music streamers out there at the moment. Kim Marie Sky. And she's, trying to make a little bit of a name for herself, had a rather amazing anniversary last week. Like, people were just throwing tons of subs and money, which is deserved at her. So it's just but musician at home is the mod over at Kimmery Sky's stream. So it's like if you want some good music, fun times, go give Kimmery Sky a follow. And yeah. So I was there earlier giving what little hype I can. But yeah, thanks for coming by, a musician at home. I hope you're well. I hope the stream over there is going well. And don't you, yeah, like I was gonna say, don't you dare raid here, but you're not gonna raid here, so that's fine. Yeah, Adderall is a close relative of meth with important differences. Would you ever set us a paper and then review them? What do you mean? Like, what do you mean, DCI? Oh, well, you're welcome. I mean, she is one of my favorite, she is my favorite music streamer. So it's like, why would I'm happy to be there, and it's always fun to be in the chat when she's streaming. What do you mean, DCI? Set you a paper, like give you something to review and then tell you what I think about your review of it? Give us a question, then get to write a short paper on it and review it. Oh, so you want a class assignment and you want me to grade you? No, I have no plans on doing grading homework. When I stopped being an academic, I was like, I don't have to grade homework anymore. Now, if you write something, I've offered this to other people. If you write something and like you're in good standing and like with me in the community or whatnot, I will read what you wrote and give you good feedback. Okay? I am not out here to give you extra homework. Might be fun. If you have something, like I said, if there's something you want to write and there's something you want to work on, I will give you feedback. I will help out. I am otherwise kind of busy, like, but so the idea that I'm going to give myself grading assignments, like I'm going to give you guys work, like you don't understand. If you haven't graded like essays or like papers, this isn't fun and it takes a long time and it's a pain in the ass. Like no, at this point of the year, there's a reason why, Aris, like let's give, I can't shout out yet because I just shout out Creamery Sky. Our buddy Aris, like he drops off in the last 2 weeks. You don't see him online as much because he's got so much grading to do. It's not fun. And it's a very draining process. So it's like the idea that I'm going to do that to myself is a bad idea. Now, if there was some sort of content we could get out of this, yeah, for a stream, sure. And if you guys have something you want me to read, yes, I will do that and give you feedback. But I don't see any upside unless it somehow is good for stream content. And yeah, I'd have to think of something like that, like how it would actually be useful to stream. Otherwise, it's just extra homework for me. Now, like I said, if you want to do something, that we can talk. But that's on you. It was fun to watch Tommy grade papers the other day. I missed that. I kind of wanted to see that too. I want to see what he was going to do. You want to send, yeah, see, I will read Ivan Neo's evolution and design paper perfectly well, and I'll give feedback on that, and we'll see what we can do with that. But yeah, like I was helping Tommy write a paper. I didn't help him read, but like, yeah, see, you can point out what's going on in papers, but I'm doing that anyway. I do that here, and then I'm going to have my little philosophy roulette reviews site that goes up. I'll get that up soon. So it's like, but like that's providing content for like general philosophies, and then like we can look at the reviews in the past. We'll be able to search it and all that stuff, and so that's going to provide content. But I'm doing that anyway. Now, if you guys want to write papers, fine. But let me tell you something about philosophy papers. They are not easy to write, and so it's like basically. It's like it's hard. It's gonna take a long time, and so I don't actually think it's like I'd have to find some way to make it easier on the community because writing is actually very difficult. And so it's like, yeah, unless you're in college and you've been reading stuff and got all this stuff like organized, it's not so easy. That's all. So easier said than done, DCI. That's kind of what I'm saying. But like I said, if you have something you're interested in, like Ivan got his evolution design paper, yeah, then we can talk. Okay. Okie dokie. Yeah, so the term success here, okay, so we're still talking someone who takes drugs versus someone who just worked, took more, trained more to get the same results. So the term success is to be understood here as referring to achievement. Two individuals attain the same success if they achieve the same things. Yeah, see, you just wouldn't know where to begin. Well, that we got, you can't see the wood through the trees. Yeah. This is the problem. If you were taking a class, we could talk about what was going on in the class. I don't have that right here. But if you have something you want to talk about, like you have an idea, then we can talk about that. But again, if like I was going to give you something like, oh, hey, let's go talk about, this whatever like topic, like AI ethics or whatever, we talk about that plenty. Yeah, then we could talk about that. But like, again, what do you want to say about it? You have to go do background reading. It's a lot of work. Like, trust me. Like we can go like do a book, like people do book talks or whatever. You could go read a chapter, then you could go, write a response paper to a chapter of a book you were reading. You do this sort of thing in grad school. That'd be the sort of thing you might be able to do. But then again, you're doing like a focused book reading, and then you're having like a book talk every week, and then you can go through what everyone has to say. And that's the sort of thing you do it as an undergrad or grad school. So that's an idea, but like we could talk about that. But again, not so easy to write. Like it's not easy. It takes a lot of time, and then I would be relying on community in terms of stream content, and that's dangerous. You have to provide the content, usually. Okay, so the goods associated with that success is to be understood as referring both to the achievement itself, if achievements are in themselves good for the achiever, and to any other prudential goods that the achievement confers on the achiever. Yeah, so all the goods is like the stuff you get for being good. DCI says, don't get me wrong, I didn't immediately think, what's something that would give no girl lots of work? It's more for my work time expenditure. No, absolutely. But here's the question. Like, what is the, like, if we were in Discord just, like, shooting the shit, you want to write something in Discord, then, like, have people read it and discuss? Sure. But, like, could we set some interesting topics for that, too? Yes, but again, it's like then all of a sudden, what's the good out of it? Happy like I know people run like online discussion groups, sure, but again, then you have to like focus, get some topic you everyone wants to talk about, like a book, like Aris always recommends, things like that. And since I keep saying Aris, let's give Aris a shout out. Shout out Aris, Thottle. Did I spell it correctly? I did. Yay. Okay. Anyone who doesn't know, Aristotle is one of the other philosophy streamers here on twitch.tv/Aristotle. He does ancient ethics and yeah, I forget what he does. Ancient and ethics mostly, and he's really good at shit posting. He does Ask Me Anything, so you can go in there and ask him anything you want, and you can ask me stuff, but like that's the point of his stream is you talk and he'll answer. And he's an ethicist, so he's much better at saying like things like people want to talk about. Me, I'm like, hey, let's go talk about some like arcane idea in metaphysics, which makes me very odd, really. But that's the sort of thing. So it's like, if you don't know Aris, go follow Aris, although I suspect most of the people here do. DCI says, I guess Tommy would be a good person to ask what an undergrad question recommendation in reading might be. Yeah, but again, you can ask Aris, ask Tommy, because they're academics. I'm not. You can ask me questions, but I don't actually know what the current literature on many of these things are. But again, you have to know what topic you want to talk about, because there's so many topics. If you're just saying, hey, go recommend me a book, Aris is going to give you his book recommendations. You're just going to go get the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius or whatever. Yeah, go ask me if you want a technical question. If you want, I know he recommends me. You'd be Nopra. Where was that I missed? Oh, I'm sorry I missed that, Cinesemiotics. I didn't even see it. That's terrible. You got 4 books on his recommendations. Yeah, if you have technical questions, I will try to answer it. Like, I've done a little bit of philosophical logic. I know some of the more analytic-y things that he does not do. So I know something about that. Tommy also is in this more analytic bent. Same with our buddy Evolve Yourself TV. So it's like we are in different areas if you have different questions. But if you're asking me like ethics stuff, like what should I be doing? I don't know. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's like, I mean, go read like Wittgenstein and stuff. It's like, yeah, that's not going to help anyone. It's like, if you want to talk about weird things in like language and technical areas, like, okay. But like, this is the thing. Like, I wouldn't ever read this paper if it was just up to me. I don't care what people deserve. I don't care. Yeah, you'd have to bribe me with some pizza. Yeah, you've got a logic. Everyone gets a logic. Yeah, like, you have to understand, logic, you can really make logics do whatever you want. Like, once you know how to, like, manipulate logics, like the good logicians, you can make them do whatever you want. People think, oh, like, this is logical. Not true. They can make logics fit your answers if they want to. It's like, then you've got problems. Now, the real problem is, when can you not do that? And then you've got some like very serious deep problems when you get into like paradoxes and things you can't talk about. Like, why can't you talk about certain things? Things can't be spoken about for some weird reasons. Then you've got weird deep problems in logic. Those are interesting. Yeah, they can. Ivan? Mm-hmm. You want a logic where true and false can be something can be true and false at the same time. You want a logic where you can assert and deny things at the same time. People do weird shit. They can make logics that you shouldn't, like, most people wouldn't consider logics. But like things move around. Like there was one guy saying what's an even 5 and an odd 4. Like the number 4 would be odd and the number 5 would be even. Like, you want to talk about weird logics? Well, go get me a logic where the number 5 is even. You can do it. It just means, what else are you giving up to have that logic? And sometimes it's less than you think. So, yeah. Like, yeah, this is the thing. Like, what do people deserve? I don't care. Like, this is a problem with me. Like, I'm more interested in other stuff. Now, what I am interested in is the argument this person presents. I am very interested in argument forms and structures of argumentation. So why should we think that there is an argument to what people deserve from the premise here, which is two different ways of achieving something. And what's the difference in deserve at that point? That I am interested in, and that's why I do philosophy roulette. I see what people are arguing. Fuzzy logic, furry logic, exactly. Oh, that'd be great. I've never seen an actual furry logic. Someone should do that for the memes. Oh my god. I wonder if it's been done. Yeah. Okay, the dessert. Yeah, we've gotten on. We haven't gotten through one page yet, and it's an hour and a half into stream. Yeah. It doesn't exist? Yeah, but it should exist because it would just get downloaded a million times. Like, you could make it, like, very hairy or something. Like, a hairy logic, actually. Because that's a double entendre, because, like, something being hairy is a little bit, like, dangerous. And so a hairy logic would work. And then you could have, like, a subset of that being furry logic, which would be a very hairy logic, would be a furry logic. And then, yeah, and then that would get, like, all the downloads. Kinky logic, I wouldn't be surprised if someone did something like that. There's deviant logic. Deviant logic is something that does exist. I don't know what that... Moistening logic? I don't know what that is on Real Brian. I only do a conditioning logic. Yeah. Well, there's conditional logic. There's lots of conditionals in logic. I don't know what... Yeah, moistening, not so much. Like, that's like hair drying stuff. But yeah, there is deviant logic, which is, yeah, I forget. But, like, you can look that up. You just made that up? Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea what that is. Okay, so we're just getting out of the introduction here. The dessert thesis has often remained implicit in philosophical discussions of enhancement, and an initial aim of this article is to bring it to the surface. In section 1, I clarify the thesis, and in section 2, I explain why it's worthy of philosophical attention. My primary aim, however, is to challenge the thesis. I pursue this aim by examining what I take to be three most promising arguments that might be offered in support of the thesis: the argument for moral means in section 3, the argument from diminished effort in section 4, the argument from shared responsibility in section 5. I argue that each argument shows only that enhancements undermine desert in special circumstances, thus falling well short of establishing the desert thesis, or succeeds only under assumptions that rob appeals to desert of much of their interest as potential grounds for objections to enhancement. I conclude in 6 by drawing out some implications of my argument. Okay, so this is a pro-enhancement paper. We are going to be arguing that all the reasons why we should not be enhancing people are bad reasons. So that's where we're going. I just wanted to know where that was. But yeah. Okay, so what's the desert thesis? What is it to deserve something for the right reasons versus deserving it for the wrong reason, not deserving something because you got it in a illegitimate way? Yeah. No, see, someone's got to do the furry logic at this point just because, for the memes. Ever seen the Drug Olympics skit on SNL? No, but is that right? Have I seen it? No, I don't think I have, or at least I can't remember it at this point. What is it? Okay, so the desert thesis requires 3 clarifications. These concern 1, the concept of desert that it invokes; 2, the assumptions about the genesis of achievements on which it is grounded; and 3, its scope. It might be too young to know it. I doubt that. I mean, I'm old, and that doesn't mean I wouldn't have seen it, though. Hop, skip, and where the fuck did he go? That's funny. He's like, oh, just boing, yeah, my people need me style. Okay, so first, the concept of desert. The desert thesis makes a claim about the relative desert of 2 groups of people: those who succeed with the aim of enhancements and otherwise similar individuals who succeed without enhancements. I have said what this desert is desert for. It is desert for the goods associated with the success. But what kind of desert is it? Yeah, it's not cake. The cake is a lie. In one commonly deployed sense of desert, to deserve a good is to be entitled to it. If I purchase a non-counterfeit lottery ticket bearing the number 14,376, and this number is subsequently drawn in the lottery, then I am entitled to the prize. I deserve it in the entitlement sense of desert. But there is another sense of desert in which I may not deserve it. I may not be worthy of it. I may be a thoroughly bad person who already enjoyed far more good luck than benefits my flawed nature. And this is one of the reasons I looked at this, because we were talking about what good luck is. Like, is it actually good luck? And why should we talk about that? Look at me still talking when there's philosophy to be done. Yeah, I mean, I was saying this yesterday on Aris's stream that I got a mean YouTube comment about me going off and talking to Kat about cake during my Hegel, the last Hegel paper I read. Like, you're watching a fucking Twitch streamer talk about Hegel, and you're angry that I got not distracted. I had sidetracked by a discussion of cake in chat. And it's just like, it's mind-boggling to me. So all I could do, I was gonna leave like a mean, snarky comment, but I didn't do that. I just left like the little heart comment, a little passive aggressively, if I do say so myself, on what they said. They're like, "Go fucking edit your videos, streamer." I'm like, screw you. And then thankfully, Viper's Gratitude left a hilarious video as a response to them. So, but like, yeah. It's like, I'm still talking, and there's philosophy to be done. Like, yeah. But this is the point of Twitch, is chat interaction, you know? So, yeah. So it was exactly, Ivan Neo, as a kind of dialectic. But this is the thing. What is the loop here on Twitch? The loop is not the video game or whatever, like me reading a paper. Because anyone can do that. And just watching someone play a game is okay. You want to interact with them. That's the whole point. The loop is not me doing something like playing a game or reading a paper. It's me interacting with chat, using this as content, either being a video game, music streamer playing songs, or whatever else, people do. Like Aristotle just chats. He directly interacts. But most of the time that's hard. You need to have some sort of other content going on. But like, that's the loop. It's the interaction between me and chat, not me and the video game directly. It's not people who are necessarily good at video games that do well on Twitch. It's people who are good enough at video games and can interact with chat in a meaningful way. Hegel stepped out for dessert. Exactly. Oh God, that video he posted there, it's about like the shit. Like shit. It's about a world made of shit, like literally, including cake. And so, yeah. Yeah, so if you're not worthy of it in the sense that you haven't earned like the reward in some sense. I want to refresh now. It's a good point. Let's go take a look. What do we got? So there's something new at the top, nothing new at the top. Scroll down again. So we were talking about colors earlier. And for anyone who doesn't know, Cinesemiotics makes some AI-generated art based on stream. Okay, so we were talking about rabbinical discourse at weddings. So this looks like, not rabbis, to tell you the truth. It looks like some sort of Asian thing, but yeah, add some sort of, nice meal. This looks nice. They look like nice people. On transhumanism and technology. Oh, we got some interesting blue swirls. Oh, so we got some guy in some futuristic foreign planet. Very swirl-like. Like, not guy, but some character. Maybe like a space suit. And then we've got, the obelisk of the phone. Here we go. This is kind of cool. Very phone in like this sort of neon world here. Neon obelisk. And then we've got a kind of a Siri Apple inspired Android. Kind of cool. Yeah, I got the Iron Man hands. Oh, and then we've got sort of a got the sort of orange red eye Terminator style thing. It's cool. Actually, this is maybe more what's that thing from Detroit? RoboCopy. And this is more of a female-looking android. The robot is upset with Hegel. Everyone is upset with Hegel. So yeah. Hey, they even got a little butt turn for the female android. There you go. So yeah. And like a little hair sort of thing. What is this? This is interesting. Oh, is this like getting into like sort of the dystopian sort of cyberpunk where you've got like some sort of like futuristic building here next to some sort of ruined wreckage next to it? I don't know. This is kind of interesting, but again, more of the neon future cyberpunky. Oh, here we go. Now we're getting more into the Geiger style thing where we've got this sort of weird skullish thing that's still alive with like the H.R. Geigery tubes and whatnot. Yeah, and then we're getting into like creepy centipede clavicles. That's cool. Transhumanism, okay, things there. What do we got? Detroit. Did they actually install it? I was wondering about that. Yeah, so now we got more of these sort of futuristic, looking female faces. That's cool. Who's this? This is just some guy. It's not me. But, like, he looks pretty normal, actually. This is me, like morphed into some other stuff. Me plus other people. Are those like philosophers you've like morphed me into? Who is this? This is someone with a logic quaffs. So these like logicians with hair. Wow. Okay, now we got to the furries. Now I understand where we're going with this. Okay. Now we've got to the furries. Doggy. What is happening to this doggy? Is this like a doggy microphone? What is this? It's like, mold like weirdly into his face. That's cool. Kitties. So these are AI generated kitties. Kitties. Floofy, pussy, kitty. Then we got more floofy beards. Such a floof. Look at that hat. That's a great hat. Oh, I did not know it was up because last I heard it was in storage. Yeah, so we've got this is sort of the Nietzsche plus extra floofiness. Yeah, so we've got like a cat sort of thing plus a guy with floof. More floof. Okay. Oh, this is not it. I was wondering, there used to be, what I was thinking, there's actually a RoboCop statue somewhere in a storage place in Detroit that was going to get installed, and then the city didn't like it because, Detroit doesn't really come off well in RoboCop. And so, yeah. This is kind of cool. This looks kind of neat, this thing here. Let's see if we can zoom in a bit. So, yeah, look at that. This is kind of interesting. You think that's still pending? Yeah, that's what I thought you were talking about when I mentioned RoboCop. No, this is cool. I like this. This is a little what's it called? Pop art style with his like the ready-made toys. That looks people. They hate this. A lot of people hate a lot of things for a while, and then like 20 years later, they're like, "We may hate it, but you have to like it because it's ours." They call it Dead Mickey. That's great. Give it a few years, people will like it. Yeah, like this is kind of cool because this is very pop art. It looks like Mickey, like a figurine. I don't see what people, it's okay. Okay, cool. I mean, I'm happy even if you have like weird strange art, like I'm down with that. I don't see why people are so angry. And definitely the pants are Mickey pants. It's true. It's right at the center of downtown. Yeah. Well, people have bad taste. Like, this is really not terrible. Like, it's kind of fun with these, like, ear things and, like, the Mickey pants. Yeah, kind of lowbrow, and you kind of like it. Exactly. Well, I wouldn't call it lowbrow. I'd call it more like pop art, Like, it's meant to be in the sort of popular media style. That's not necessarily lowbrow, but it's not bad. Like, it's just a different style of art. It's like the Dean Koontz sort of thing lowbrow. People said so at the time, but like now it's very well regarded. So yeah, I think that's very cool. So we're talking about do people deserve stuff if they take drugs? That enables them to do stuff that they wouldn't have been able to do otherwise, except other people have to work very hard at it. So the desert thesis, as the author understands it, makes a claim about desert as worthiness, not desert as entitlement. Yeah, you have to be worthy of what the benefits. DCI asks, why did Hegel eat his cake with a fork? Because he was trying to avoid the contradictions of spoon and knife. Ha 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 ha. Okay. Yeah, so if you're entitled to something, no one's questioning that because that's more of like a legal thing. The question here is the moral. Are you worthy of what you're getting? Of course, someone that wins the lottery or just inherits a lot of money can get many things. They are entitled to that due to our current laws. No one's questioning that. The question is, do they deserve it in terms of are they worthy of it? And many times the answer is no. Just because you win the lottery or you got a inheritance, that doesn't mean you're worthy of anything. It just means that's how our laws work. Okay, it holds that those who succeed with the aid of enhancements are generally less worthy of goods associated with that success than individuals who attain the same success without enhancements. The distinction between desert as entitlement and desert as worthiness is sometimes equated with the distinction between institutional and pre-institutional desert. Yeah, that's what I was saying, the laws. That's an institutional version of things. The thought is that entitlements depending on prevailing legal and other institutional arrangements, whereas worthiness does not. Yeah, so legal, like inheritance. However, worthiness can also depend on institutional context. Consider the case of a sporting competition. We can distinguish between the athlete who is entitled to a prize under the rules and conventions governing how the prize should be allocated and the athlete who is most worthy of this prize. But it is not the case that the latter athlete could be identified without regard for rules and conventions of the sporting competition. Yes and no. Because you've all seen the videos of people who like get injured, who like are winning a race, and then like something like dumb happens and then they get like tripped up. And all the other people are like, that person should have won. They are worthy of it. But someone else wins because of bad luck. What's it called? There's a speed skating competition where an American was the slowest skater on the ice, but they avoided everyone crashing out and then they went around to win. And so basically one of the slowest skaters won the gold because everyone crashed out, and it was the fault of someone at the head of the peloton, and then they knocked out everyone behind them, but it wasn't the fault of anyone behind them. So it was like, yeah, but everyone knew that. Even he said that he was like, I'm the least deserving of the bunch. So it's like, even though you can only determine stuff in certain circumstances by sports competition, that doesn't mean people don't know. So it's like you can sometimes identify without regard for the rules. Like, the rules only help filter stuff. They're not actually everything. Okay, author says, though, for instance, one factor that is clearly relevant to determining who is worthy of the prize is what the conventionally determined purpose of the competition was. If the purpose of the competition was to test the innate running ability, then we may be inclined to say that possessing a high degree of innate running ability is at least one of the factors that could make one worthy of the prize. By contrast, if the point of the competition was to test effort, then innate running ability may be irrelevant to worthiness. Exactly, MDD. Doesn't matter, still won. But so the rules and the competition is a filter on the field of competitors. But it's not a perfect filter because, any given day some weird shit can happen. But that doesn't mean people don't know that, that person is generally better. But something irrelevant happened and it didn't work out. But, it's like nothing's perfect. Okay. So the author says, thus, though my focus in what follows will be on worthiness, not entitlement, it does not follow that I will be interested only in a pre-institutional kind of desert. Indeed, their argument will at several points rely on the dependence of desert on institutional context. Yeah, this is not to say, of course, against what I was saying earlier, the competition is a filter. You use the filter to, judge between people. So there is something conventional, institutional about filtering using competitions, like institutional competitions like Olympics. Okay. Author's second clarification concerns the comparison that the desert thesis draws between those who succeed with the aid of enhancements and otherwise similar individuals who succeed without enhancements. The thesis holds that the enhancement achievers generally deserve the goods associated with their achievements less than the comparator unenhanced achievers. As I will sometimes say, omitting reference to the relevant goods and dropping the generally qualifier, the thesis holds that enhancement undermines desert and that unenhanced achievers are more deserving than enhanced achievers. However, the thesis tells us nothing about how, despite the similarities between them, the unenhanced achievers manage to realize the same achievements as the enhanced achievers? Do they augment their abilities through means other than enhancement? Do they simply try harder? Or did they start from a higher level of ability than the unenhanced achievers? We'll need to assume some difference between the enhanced and unenhanced achiever that compensates for the development of enhancements by the latter, and the nature of this difference could make an important difference to the plausibility of the thesis, since it could affect the degree to which unenhanced achievers deserve the goods in question. It is often thought, for example, that those who succeed largely on the basis of innate ability deserve the rewards they thereby receive less. So people who on innate ability deserve the rewards they receive less than those who realize the same success despite possessing less inability. Yeah, so like if you, in some sense, it's supposed to show effort, not just innate ability. Okay, in order to present the desert thesis in its most plausible light, I will assume that the unenhanced achievers start from the same level of ability as the enhanced achievers and manage to realize the same achievements through either exerting greater effort or augmenting their abilities through the more traditional means of education or training. Yeah, you're supposed to have worked harder to get the thing, like more discipline somehow. Finally, my third clarification concerns the scope of the desert thesis. The scope. I limit the scope of the thesis to achievements whose realization without the aid of enhancement contributes positively to the achiever's desert. That is to say, I limit the thesis to achievements whose realization makes the achiever more deserving of the associated goods than she would have been had she not realized the achievement at all. Not all achievements are like this. Successfully coordinating a terrorist attack does not make one more deserving of any goods associated with doing so. It makes one less deserving of the goods and perhaps more deserving of certain ills. But in many cases, realizing an achievement does make one more deserving of the goods associated with that achievement. This is most clearly so when the achievement is a morally valuable achievement, but it is plausibly also true of some morally neutral achievements. For example, many would hold that one can come to deserve accolades and fame by winning a gold medal at the Olympics, though this achievement is arguably morally neutral, or at least not very morally significant. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Why do we value sports achievements? That's a completely different question here. Is there a moral good to that? There might be. There might actually be a moral good to, pushing human achievements to the limit to see what can we do. What is the limit of human abilities? That might be a moral good to find that out, or an aesthetic good. But if you make some sort of scientific breakthrough and say you cure some disease, that seems like a moral achievement that everyone would like. World was in a worse state yesterday than it is today. There'll be less suffering of humans because, we have now cured some terrible disease. So, but again, did that person use a lot of drugs to enhance their brain so that they could, understand chemical structure and then were therefore able to make a new drug that solved a disease? Who knows? Okay, so limiting the scope to the thesis of the thesis to achievements whose realization contributes positively to the achiever's desert has the advantage of leaving open two quite different ways in which the desert thesis could turn out to be correct. It could be that employing enhancements generally diminishes the positive influence of realizing an achievement on one's desert, or it could be that employing enhancements generally makes an independent negative contribution to desert. Okay, so it's either the drugs are bad just in general on its own, that's the independent one, or in some sense it means that you on your own deserve it less. So it's either it's the drug's fault or it just means you're less worthy. Either way, no big deal. If you're using drugs to, win something. Okay, motivating the desert thesis. Having clarified the desert thesis, I am now in a position to explain why I take it as my focus. The thesis has at least three claims to philosophical attention. First, it yields intuitive, plausible verdicts about desert in many cases. Consider what is perhaps the paradigmatic example of enhancement: doping in sport. When one athlete succeeds with the assistance of a doping substance, we would generally intuit that this athlete deserves the reward associated with his success less than other similarly successful athletes who do not dope. Similarly, thoughts apply to the use of cognition enhancement drugs by students during examinations. Consider the case of Atkinson and Baird, with which I began. Most would judge that Atkinson, who used a cognition-enhancing drug, deserves her place on the prestigious PhD program less than Baird, who did not. This is precisely what the desert thesis would suggest. Yeah, I mean, this is, I guess, basic stuff. Second, the dessert thesis, or a restricted version of it, appears to be held, at least implicitly, by some members of the public. Faber and collaborators presented healthy participants with a scenario in which a protagonist succeeds in completing a cognitively demanding task either with or without the assistance of a cognition-enhancing drug. Participants attributed this success less to the protagonist and deemed that the success to be less deserved when the protagonist had used a cognitive enhancer than when she had not. The research subjects appeared to be invoking something like the dessert thesis, at least in relation to enhancements of cognition. I mean, yeah, it's like, do we allow calculators on tests? No. Why not? Everyone has their phone with them all the time nowadays. Well, the idea is that you had to learn the thing. But the phone now can just do the math for you. But the idea is you're supposed to learn it. Okay. So third, though the dessert thesis has, to my knowledge, never been straightforwardly asserted in the philosophical literature on enhancement, it is charitable to attribute it to some of those who advanced moral or prudential objections to enhancement. Yeah, I mean, this is fair. This has maybe never been specifically mentioned before, which would be interesting, but that doesn't mean it hasn't been mentioned in passing. I'm sure people have said this on, drugs, and there's a whole philosophy of sport too, and I'm sure they've talked about it there. Okay, for instance, certain fairness-based objections to enhancement are difficult to sustain without it. Many have objected to enhancements on the grounds that they produce unfairness. In some cases, the concern is about unfair inequalities that might result from unequal access to enhancement technologies, or about straightforward cheating, the breaking of rules or conventions that others respect. However, others worry that enhancements will generally, specifically, always or almost always produce unfairness regardless of whether the non-enhancers lacked access to enhancements or simply chose not to use them, regardless of whether the enhancement infringes any law or convention. Yeah, I mean, you're supposed to have an even playing field, and if someone's getting a free enhancement, then it seems like it's not an even playing field anymore. So, I'm gonna have to move faster in this paper because it is kind of long, and I don't want to be here for hours. Okay, but don't feel free to keep asking questions. Let's see, did we get any more stuff off here? Oh, wow, there's a lot more. Okay, we've got some knives and philosophers. Oh, you guys can't see. Sorry. So I was looking at some more of the A art. We've got a lot of art. We're talking spoons and all sorts of... On Hegel and utensils, yeah. Hegel with spoons. There is no spoon, Hegel. Don't you know anything? Got some old-style knives. Weird swords. Nice. Okay, thank you for the art. Anywho. Okay. The dessert thesis can, when conjoined with some prominent accounts of fairness, explain why enhancements will generally produce unfairness even in such cases. The relevant accounts of fairness hold that fairness, or one species of it, requires that goods are distributed across individuals in proportion to the degree to which those individuals deserve those goods. Thus, it is unfair if I have twice as much of the sum goods as you, though we are equally deserving of it. Fairness then requires, if possible, we enjoy the same amount of this good. It is also unfair if I have the same amount of that good as you, though you deserve it more. Fairness requires that, if possible, you enjoy more of the good. Yeah, I mean, all things equal, if me and you are the same, we should have an equal amount of all the good stuff. If you deserve it more, then that doesn't mean I shouldn't have good stuff, but you should have more of it. It's fair. Suppose that you and I succeed in the same way and enjoy the same reward as a result. But suppose that I realize the success with the aid of an enhancement, whereas you did not. In all other respects, we are similar. For example, we were in advance of realizing the achievement, equally well off and equally deserving of the rewards we both go on to receive. If the dessert thesis holds, then, having both realized the achievement, you are more deserving than me, and it is unfair that we in fact enjoy the same rewards. Fairness requires that, if possible, you enjoy greater rewards than me. By contrast, had I realized the achievement without enhancement, or simply not realized the achievement, there is no reason to suppose that any unfairness would have been presented between us. My use of enhancement has had a fairness disrupting effect. Yep. This is not to say that my use of enhancement has caused an increase in unfairness. All told, for my use of the enhancement may also mitigate some existing unfairness. Suppose, for example, that oh, come on. This is just saying, all right, yeah, I'm cheating, but it's okay because I was screwed over earlier. Seriously, author? Whatever. All right, let's get through the paragraph. Suppose, for example, that the rewards that you and I require through our achievements consist in some quantity of good G, and suppose that besides you and me, everyone enjoys some very large quantity of G, much more than we enjoyed before, or indeed after our achievements. So this is a reviewer told them, what about this, and they had to put this garbage paragraph in. Yes, this is obvious, and I guess they had to mention it, but now they had to waste a whole paragraph of our time. Suppose, moreover, that these are, in fact, no more deserving of their large endowments of G than us. We thus possess smaller endowments of G than fairness requires in this setting. Even though my use of enhancement may introduce an unfairness between you and me, it will also reduce the unfairness between me and everyone else by reducing the degree to which I am under-endowed with G relative to them. All things considered, the situation may have improved with regard to fairness. Still, my use of the enhancement has some fairness disrupting effect. It introduces unfairness between you and me. Yeah, I don't even want to talk about that. I'm just already annoyed about it. The dessert thesis also helps to make sense of another oft-heard objection to enhancement. Opponents of enhancement sometimes invoke the claim that achievements accomplished with the aid of enhancement lack some of the value normally attached to the achievements of the same kind. For instance, Eric Youngst wonders whether achievements realized via enhancement might be hollow accomplishments, while the President's Council of Bioethics claim that enhancements would undermine the dignity of human performance and perhaps render that performance false. Yeah, so this is what I was saying earlier. Maybe there's aesthetic problems. Like, you're trying to find out what the limit of human ability is. And once you are using enhancements, you are no longer talking about human ability. You're talking about, some technology, which is fine, but that's not what we were looking for. So that would make it kind of a false thing. You're not seeing a human performance. You're seeing a machine performance. And they're saying and if you do that, maybe the accomplishment, you can't feel the same amount of joy about it because you didn't actually do the work in some sense, but it'll feel hollow because you didn't get it in the right way, so you won't feel justified in your joy. Possibly. Okay. In some cases, enhancements may devalue our achievements because they frustrate the very purpose of the activity being pursued. Using an enhancement might, to take an oft-cited example, be like completing a marathon with the aid of roller skates. It's interesting that that's an applicable in cheating in academia or using AI to complete tasks. Yeah, this is where the author is going with it, DCI. Absolutely. It's yeah, so what? But so what if you use cheating to cure cancer, though? That's the point. So this is the thing. Completing a marathon with the aid of roller skates. But clearly you were supposed to have run, not skated. It's not doing the same thing. So some activities like marathon running fulfill their purpose only where pursued in a certain kind of way, and in some cases, enhancement is inimical to the required manner of execution. Yeah, so if you have to run and you are not running, then you didn't do that. And skating clearly, anything with wheels is going to go faster. You can see the wheelchair race, and those people go faster than the runners, I believe. I think so, at least. Okay. However, not all activities are such that their purpose is undermined when they are pursued with the aid of enhancements. Consider landing an airliner or performing a surgical operation. The purpose of these activities is to realize a certain outcome, and the realization that outcome need not be threatened and may even be aided by the use of enhancements. Nevertheless, some present the concern about devaluing achievements as a general worry about enhancement. Yeah, so this is the question. Are we worried about the method of completing a task, or are we just worried about the outcome of the task? Clearly, if the point is to run a marathon and you don't run, then you haven't run a marathon. You skated or drove the marathon length. You didn't run it. It's not the point. But if you are only concerned from getting from point A to point B, then it doesn't matter how you do it. Take the fastest method possible. And the most efficient method. I guess if you're doing surgery, get the surgery done in the best way possible. It doesn't matter how. Okay, the dessert thesis is able to explain why enhancement might deprive an achievement of some of its value, even if the activity being pursued by the enhanced individual continues to serve its valuable purpose. A hovercraft full of eels. I mean, we should get Cinesemiotics to make some AI of that. That would be kind of cool. Though very scary, kind of creepy. Okay, pleasure is normally valuable, but some would maintain that it lacks some or all of its normal value when it is not deserved. I like the term cheap high. If you have to work very hard to get high, that's really annoying. Cheap highs are great. You don't have to work for them. It's cheap. So, like, yeah, that's the whole point of a cheap high. Since MX is on top, he's on the work. He's getting it done. It is plausible that similar thoughts apply to goods associated with achievements. It may be that the value of these goods diminishes as the degree to which they're deserved decreases. Yeah, so you don't get to feel as good about your stuff. Thus, if enhancements undermine dessert in the way that dessert thesis aims, we can expect the achievements that they enable to lack some of their normal value, as proponents of the present objection maintain. Yeah, this is the hollow. Your achievements ring hollow. If you didn't do it, it was something else doing it, so why do you feel like you should have an achievement then? Author believes that it is charitable to impute the dessert thesis to many of those who have claimed that enhancement generally produces unfairness or devalues our achievements. However, even if this is not so, the fact that the dessert thesis provides one plausible way of supporting those widely advanced claims gives us some reason to at least entertain it as an ethical hypothesis. Let us now turn to testing that hypothesis, which I propose to do by examining 3 candidate justifications for it. The first of these is what I call the argument from immoral means. Okay, yeah, so this is, I have to give this author credit in some sense. If this really has never been a defended thesis before, this seems like a fantastic topic. What do we got? All right, thank you, Cinemax. I don't know if you just sent that because I don't get the messages here, but yeah, I appreciate the art if and when it comes. Let's see what we got. Yep, okay. On Minesweeper. Oh, look at that. A gaming AI. That's cool. Yeah, see, this is like, a little bit of gaming. And then the Minesweeper, like, it's usually not a hexagon, usually a square. But, like, this is sort of like a 3D cube or something. So this is kind of cool on Minesweeping. Yeah. You're making the eel hovercraft first? Ah, cool. All right, let me, sorry, I didn't show. Gotta show. So, yeah, so this is the on Minesweeping. So you can see like the little controller down here, then sort of a face in like, if you look at a cube in 3D, it kind of looks like this hexagon, octagon looky thing. And so that's kind of what it is, but like there's squares in Minesweeping. So this is on Minesweeping. Those don't know, I also stream Minesweeper sometimes. I've been active in the Twitch Minesweeper community, so yeah. Thank you, Cinesemiotics. Okay, but yeah. So if I took a drug and got good at Minesweeper and then was able to win, why is that unfair? Many believe that enhancement is always morally undesirable in a way that education, training, and the mere exertion of efforts are not. I have suggested that some of this opposition is grounded on the dessert thesis, but some clearly is not. Some believe that enhancements are undesirable for independent reasons, for example, because they alienate the enhanced individual from their true selves, restrict their freedom or autonomy, express an ugly desire for mastery, undermine social solidarity, or poison healthy family and romantic relationships. Let us suppose, for the sake of argument, that at least one of these criticisms is sound, that enhancements are always morally undesirable in some dessert-independent way that education, training, or the mere exertion of effort are not. In this case, we will have a ready justification for the dessert thesis, for it is plausible that the adoption of morally undesirable means tends to diminish one's desert. All right, I see where this argument's going. They're going to knock down all of this stuff, and that's fair. There's always going to be this. If you think about the structure of arguments, and like I said, this is one of my reasons I like doing philosophy roulette, is you get to see what people are thinking. They're thinking, hey, look, is there any way that enhancement is always going to be wrong? And the answer is going to be no, because there's going to be situations, there's going to be a counterexample to all of these things. If I can enhance myself good enough to cure all of cancer, wouldn't that be a morally good thing? Maybe even to turning me into a freak, like some really weird thing that kills me the next day, but I will have cured cancer before that. Would that enhancement that was only short-lived be worth it? And some people might say yes. Like, okay, we get to cure cancer for all of humanity, and I'm willing to make that sacrifice, then yeah. So it's like, this is the thing. I can see where they're going, I think, in my sort of like prediction, given all these, the list of things that might go wrong. Well, in all these things, there would be a counterexample, because like there'd be some very good thing curing cancer that like might be possible if we were just a little bit smarter. Okay. Thus, suppose that Ewart, so we've got to E. Ewart wins Olympic gold in figure skating, but he wins only because he previously assaulted and seriously injured one of his competitors. Okay, Tanya Harding. Or suppose that Ferguson wins a Nobel Prize in medicine, but she wins only because she ruthlessly exploited her junior staff. Intuitively, these individuals deserve the goods associated with their success less than the typical Olympic gold medalist or Nobel Prize winner, and one of the explanations for this appeal to the facts that each realizes the achievement through morally undesirable means. Unreal Brian says it's all about the in the case of games, arbitrary constraints. In the Paralympics, for instance, enhancements such as prosthetics that allow help athletes compete are a good thing. Yeah, so again, everyone is allowed certain things under the laws, the rules. Like you can always run with sneakers in marathons. Now, certain sneakers are not allowed, but you could always run with sneakers. And sneakers are arguably an enhancement that allows us to run for larger distances without injuring our feet. So it's not even the Paralympics, it's just regular old races. You're still allowed to use like gloves. A goalie in soccer or football can use gloves. You ever touch goalie gloves of a soccer goalie? They are tacky as fuck. Like, that's an enhancement, but that is a legal enhancement. So it's like you don't have to go even to the Paralympics. There's a certain range of allowability always in the institutions or conventions. But yeah, it's a good point, Unreal Brian. Okay, so if the employment of enhancements is always in one way morally undesirable, then similar reasoning could be applied to achievements realized with the assistance of enhancements. Yeah, so it's like if you were beating up all your competition, then did you actually win the competition? Not really, because you didn't. Yeah, you won it in the technical sense, but that's because there were no competitors. It's not how you were supposed to win. By eliminating the competition, you're supposed to be better than the competition. Okay. The difficulty with this approach to defending the dessert thesis is that it relies on the existence of an independent of dessert basis for supposing that enhancements are morally undesirable. To establish that any particular enhancement undermines dessert, we must first establish that there is an independent objection to it, and to establish that enhancement generally undermines dessert, as the dessert thesis maintains, we must establish that there is an independent general objection to enhancement. This deprives appeal to dessert of much of their dialectic interest in the ethical debate on enhancement. Such appeals derive much of their interest from their potential to fill a justificatory gap, to establish that enhancements are morally or prudentially undesirable, in some cases where we would otherwise be unable to establish this. On the present argument, however, appeals to dessert can at most establish a supplementary objection to enhancement. Yeah, it's like, of course, this is exactly what Unreal Brian was saying. Some enhancements are allowed. And so why should some enhancements be allowed? So Unreal Brian called this right before they said it. So it's like, yeah, you have to allow some enhancements because that's just what it is to compete in certain sports. Like using a tennis racket allows you to hit a ball a lot faster than you would be able to to throw it with your hand maybe. It's like, that's an enhancement. But that's the point of tennis. Yeah, imagine like you can't do certain things without a tennis racket. Like, is the tennis racket an enhancement? Serious question. It's constitutive of the sport of tennis to use a tennis racket, but it does enhance us in certain ways. So yeah. Unreal Brian says the game is defined by the rules constraints. Without those, you don't have a game. Exactly. And certain enhancements are allowed under all the rules. like how tight you're allowed to tie the strings of your tennis racket. That's part of the, like, having a tennis racket matters. When they switched from wood tennis rackets to metal tennis rackets, it made a big difference because you were able to hit the ball a lot harder with a metal tennis racket. It's a metal framed tennis racket. And that changed the sport. But like that was within the rules. So like that was an enhancement that was allowed. Okay, so yeah. It isn't just the enhancement, it has to make it unfair in some way. Okay, so let us turn then to consider whether it's possible to defend the desert thesis in a way that does not diminish its dialectic significance in this way. The argument from diminished effort. Okay, so this one was that you're getting there immorally. It's like, yeah, but no, there are definitely sanctioned things. So not all enhancements are immoral. There are sanctioned enhancements. Okay, so the argument from diminished effort. A second argument for the desert thesis is suggested by the claim, sometimes advanced as an objection to an enhancement, that enhancement makes our achievements too easy. Ronald Cole Turner worries that the new means, and this is quote, the new means of augmenting normal human capacities, such as psychopharmacology and genetic alteration, are perhaps more efficient or easier than traditional means, but for that reason they should be opposed. There is, after all, glory and a dignity in human accomplishment attained the old-fashioned way through sweat and struggle, sometimes against great odds. Semiotic says, I didn't get exactly what I want to produce for the eels, but you can get the idea as I've added a few attempts. I'm going to try again a little later tonight, but I can do better. Bye-bye for now. Thanks for stopping by, Semiotics. Always happy to have you here. So, see what we got. This is the hovercraft eel theory. Art. Down to the Hegels again. The Hegels and spoons. Eel hovercraft. Oh my god, what is going on here? What is... Oh my... Like what? I don't understand. Oh, this is cool. This is like got this sort of a classic stylistic vibe to it. The deco. With like an eel and a hovercraft. Oh, that's cool. And then we just got a hovercraft here and an eel next to it. Oh, I can see what you mean, semiotics. Like, you kind of want the eels to be part of the hovercraft, and we've kind of got eels next to hovercrafts, which is just, this is just kind of really cool. Like, this would be like an advertising poster from back in the day. But, yeah, it's still fun. It's like, there we go. All right. Yeah, so the idea is that here is that if you are enhancing it, you are losing out on what it is. You're not authentically human. This is like, if you want to put in like authenticity terms, there's something authentic about doing it without modern technology or within like minimal modern technology. And if you start using the technology, then it's not authentically human. You're trying to compare yourself to the history of humanity in some sense. And I've had to argue over this in terms of Minesweeper, because I made my own Minesweeper client, and there's an argument: should you always allow people to have something to start off with in Minesweeper? Because in Minesweeper, if those who know, it's very easy to start off with a very bad opening position where you just have to guess a few times and then you lose a lot. And so it's like, well, that's not a very welcoming game where you have to start off losing a lot. Can't you just get someone into the game and then they can, do the minesweeping? And that's what you like to do in Minesweeper is, solve the board. But if you are always losing due to just randomness at the beginning of the game, is that a unfun, bad experience? And my position was, that is a good point. But if you change the game now, then all the new records will not be like all the old records. You have to look back at the history of Minesweeper so that you are comparing apples to apples. You just have to leave the bad start in, because otherwise the new records will be tainted compared to the old records. And it's not so much that there's a glory and dignity in the human accomplishment, it's that if you're comparing the history to them now, you want to have apples to apples comparison. Unreal Brian has turned into Nietzsche. God is dead and we've killed him? Why? Yeah, I mean, in terms of enhancement and like what it is to be human, I guess. But I mean, this is the point: is people have done great things over the course of history. In philosophy, you can argue with Aristotle, basically. And I was saying this earlier. You can argue with Aristotle if you want. And like you'll see, if you try to argue with Aristotle, Aristotle knows what he's talking about. It's very sophisticated stuff. Okay, if any rules of the games go, anything is possible and nothing matters. Well, that's the thing. You're not getting rid of all the rules. It's that you're trying to make the game better. We must become gods as ourselves and along the way make up new rules. Yes, we have to come up with new sports. That's fine. But again, you have to appreciate what people did in the past. And you have to understand what they did in the past so that you can, do it better in the now and in the future. Otherwise, we're not getting anywhere. You have to understand, like, what are we doing and why are we doing it? Like, would the change to the game make it more appetizing for new players? Probably. Would it break the line of people who have played over the last few years? Yes, it would definitely break the line. The records wouldn't be the same. And that's the thing. We're not saying anything goes. We're saying what is a legit enhancement, what is good for the sport. And, this is like in baseball. I know a lot of you are not from the United States. You probably, or at least the parts of the world that play baseball, because it's not just the United States anymore. I mean, there's Koreans, Japanese, and a lot of Central South Americans, as well as North Americans who play. But it's like this is always in baseball. Like they change the game all the time, and they've got new bats, they've got new balls. They do tighter. They tighten the stitching on the balls, all sorts of stuff. So it's like, is the current baseball rules comparable? Are the current baseball records comparable to the old ones? And one of the arguments is they were hopped up on all sorts of drugs back in the day. They just got away with it. So it's like you're not even comparing apples to apples back in the day. So it's like that's one of the things that happened. But it's like you're still trying to compare the rules. So it's not that anything goes. Like you're still trying to compare apples to apples, even from records from 100 years ago. Okay. So Leon Cass develops the point further. In those areas, quote, in those areas of human life in which excellence has until now been achieved only by discipline and effort, the attainment of those achievements by means of drugs, genetic engineering, or implanted devices look to be cheating or cheap. We believe, or until only yesterday believed, that people should work hard for their achievements. Nothing good comes easily. That's a quote. Even if one prefers the grace of the natural athlete whose performance deceptively appears to be effortless, we admire those who overcome obstacles and struggle to try to achieve the excellence of the former. I mean, we don't just want things to be hard. We want to see what the possibilities for people are. It's like this is missing the point in some sense of just getting it in the wrong way. It's like if you just make someone able to do it, it's not showing you what the possibilities for people are. It's showing you the possibility of technology, and that's like the value isn't the same. This is sort of like changing the rules of the game, as Unreal Brian is bringing up. Okay. One way of making sense of these worries would see them as advertising to the putative relationship between effort and desert. It is often thought that the exertion of effort can confer desert, and it is not difficult to generate intuitions that support this view. Suppose that Gibbs and Hamilton both complete a marathon in just under 4 hours. The two trained similarly hard for the event, but there is a large gulf in natural ability between the two. Gibbs is a naturally gifted runner, so for him, completing the marathon just under 4 hours took little effort. Indeed, he has run much more quickly in the past. Hamilton, by contrast, is genetically unsuited to long-distance running. For him, completing the marathon at all took Herculean effort. It would be tempting to say regarding this case that Hamilton is in one way more deserving of the goods associated with his achievement than Gibbs. This is not to say that he is, all things considered, more deserving. Some would argue that, perhaps since sports are designed in part to test or display natural ability, one of the things that can make one deserving of sporting success and associated rewards is precisely the kind of natural ability that Gibbs possesses. But there seems to be something pulling in the other direction also. There seems to be some respect in which Hamilton is more deserving of Gibbs. A natural way to account for this intuitive judgment would be to appeal to the fact that Hamilton must have exerted more effort than Gibbs to achieve his success. This is a good point, but it's also the point that people like a good story. Someone just being good at running is not a good story. Someone having to overcome massive difficulty to be a top level runner is a great story. And so in some sense, they didn't achieve the same thing. Yeah, they achieved the same thing in terms of the time in the marathon, but one person overcame great obstacles and the other person didn't. And so in some sense, they're not going to get the same reward because you can sell one story where you can't sell the other story. And so in the modern landscape, you can also sell narratives to, media organizations, and that will count for more for you. If you have a, big story that goes with your win as opposed to just winning. It's like there's very boring people who win sometimes, and you can see the TV people having to struggle to make them sound fancy. It's like, oh, let's go look at their history and something. But yeah. It's like, what's it called? Who has those webbed feet? It's and can swim really well. It's yeah, they have genetic stuff. Now, if you just, if they didn't have to struggle to swim well, it's well, what's the narrative there in this TV? The rewards won't be the same because the TV won't be able to benefit out of it. So there'll be more rewards for the person with the better story. But the rewards aren't even going to be comparable, even though the time in the marathon will be comparable. Anywho, okay, consider now a second case, this time involving the use and of a supposed permitted enhancement. So yeah, they're both now wearing sneakers when they run. So Irvine and Hardeen have roughly equal innate running ability and have trained equally hard. They both complete a marathon in just under 3 hours, much faster than either has run previously. Irvine's unusually quick time is due to her pushing herself exceptionally hard during the race. Hardeen is attributable to her having taken the blood-thickening dietary supplement in the weeks leading up to the race. Again, we might be tempted to say that Irvine deserves any success associated with her achievement more than does Hardeen. And again, we might posit that this is due to Irvine's greater exertion of effort. We can generalize from this case it is not a coincidence that Hardeen employed an enhancement and exerted less effort than Irvine. It might seem that, in general, individuals who have employed enhancements will have exerted less effort to realize an achievement than other individuals who realize the same achievement without the assistance of enhancement, but instead through training, education, or merely trying harder. All of these alternative routes to achievement typically involve the greater exertion of effort than does the pursuit of enhancement. Perhaps, then, enhanced achievers are generally less deserving than comparable unenhanced achievers because they generally exerted less effort in the realization of those achievements. So you can see where this is going. And they're going to say, just because you, the exertion of effort, generally, the exerted less effort means that they deserve less reward. But, clearly that's not going to matter in academic stuff. If you can cure cancer, it won't make any difference. Okay, the argument from diminished effort may seem susceptible to a quick response. In some cases, enhancement led the enhanced individual to exert more effort than she would otherwise have exerted. Indeed, some enhancements work precisely by augmenting a person's ability or willingness to exert effort. Consider the use of anabolic steroids to speed muscle recovery after training, thus allowing an athlete to train again more quickly. Even if the pursuit of an enhancement requires less effort than alternative means of augmenting one's abilities, one effect of the enhancement may be to increase one's exertion of effort, and this desert augmenting influence could predominate. So again, so you don't have to take the drug to do less work. You could make it do more work. But again, you could also say, as I was saying, that who cares? I mean, it's a different reward that you get when you exert effort. You have a better narrative, so your rewards are different because you actually achieved two different things. You got the good time, and you also exerted something, so it's a separate thing. Author says they believe that this quick response may be sufficient to undermine the argument from diminished effort, but I will not pursue it here for two reasons. Yeah, because it's a dumb... They're probably right, and they're probably right that it's dumb. No one really cares about that response. And they say, first, it only applies to a rather narrow range of enhancements. This response may show that some enhancements augment effort and thus undermine the desert thesis as I have characterized it. However, the victory may end up being rather hollow, for the great majority of enhancements may nevertheless undermine effort and thus desert. By contrast, the response that I will offer below applies more generally. They say, second, The quick response is susceptible to a possible objection. The objection holds that what matters for dessert is not the absolute effort one exerts, but the level of effort one exerts relative to one's potential for exerting effort. What matters, in other words, is the degree to which one realizes this potential. If potential for exerting effort is understood so as to incorporate all biological influences on the level of effort that one in fact exerts, then enhancements whose effects are biological must operate by augmenting potential for exerting effort rather than the degree to which this potential is realized. On the present objection, this will confer no increase in desert. Yeah, I mean, if it's just making you able to do more work and then you do the more work, it's like, all right, well, then you did the work and it's not the enhancement. Whatever. And the author says, I do not wish to endorse this objection. Indeed, I think its prospects are not rosy for reasons I have pursued elsewhere. Still, if we could offer a response to the argument from diminished effort that evaded this sort of objection, that would be preferable as it happens. I believe we can do just that. Recall that employing the quick response, which holds that some enhancements augment effort, I will pursue an alternative line of response to the argument from diminished effort. My response concedes that enhancements undermine effort, but maintains that they nevertheless need not undermine desert. The response begins from the observation that, in some circumstances, adopting a lower effort route to some achievements has no negative effect on one's desert for the goods associated with that achievement. Yeah, cure cancer. Who cares how you did it? As long as you didn't kill lots of people in the process. One such circumstance is where an agent has the option of realizing the achievement via either a lower or higher effort route, and there is no more reason to pursue the higher effort route than the lower effort route. In such a case, adopting the higher effort route involves exerting gratuitous effort that there is no more reason to exert than not, and it would be at the very least puzzling if gratuitously doing things the hard way could make one more deserving of goods. Yeah. Suppose that two similar agents face a choice regarding how to realize some achievement. They can either employ an enhancement or a more effortful traditional route involving, say, extra training. Both options are available to both agents, and the agents are aware of the amount of effort that each route to achievement entails. The first agent chooses to employ the enhancement. The second adapts the more traditional route. If there is no more reason to abstain from the enhancement than to pursue it, then the second agent who eschews the enhancement is simply exerting gratuitous effort, and exerting gratuitous effort cannot make one more deserving. There's a problem here. There's a problem here with knowing for certain that the enhancement is going to work exactly as you think it will. Not everyone can just take a drug and get smarter. So it's like there's still work that goes into this. And so it's not this easy thing where it's just like, doing something the traditional route is gratuitous. Doing something the traditional route is also doing it the well-trodden route. And so it's not going to screw anything up. If you're taking some experimental technology, it can be dangerous. And so there's more risk involved there too. Now, it may give you a high risk, high reward, and that may be a trade-off you're willing to take, but there's more to it than just saying, they're doing gratuitous effort. It's doing something, much more in some sense safe and less risky. Of course, the author says, in many circumstances in which enhancements are used, there may be reasons to adopt a higher effort route. This is what I was saying. For example, if we think that part of the point of sports is to elicit extreme levels of effort, then the athlete may well have reasons to eschew effort-reducing enhancements. However, if this is the case, we already have an independent of desert objection to the pursuit of enhancement. Yeah, it's like if you're supposed to make it painful, then why are you ever enhancing anything? Thus, we are back with the problem faced by the argument from immoral means. The appeal to diminished effort will succeed in establishing that a particular enhancement undermines desert only if there is an independent objection to that enhancement, and it will succeed in establishing the desert thesis only if there is an independent general objection to enhancement. Without an independent objection to enhancement, there will be no reason to suppose that we should prefer traditional routes to the realization of achievement, no reason to suppose that the additional effort exerted in the pursuit of the traditional route would be non-gratuitous. Excuse me. Yeah. Getting 2.5 hours into this. I knew it was a long paper, but we're getting there. Almost 2/3 done. Almost. Past half. Okay. Two possible responses to this suggestion need to be considered. The first maintains that the effort exerted in avoiding an enhancement is rarely gratuitous, because effort almost always has the instrumental value of helping to cultivate a disposition or ability to exert non-gratuitous effort in the future. Exerting effort, it might be said, is generally character building. Yet even if exerting effort did generally conduce to desirable forms of psychological development, the claim that has been questioned, there is no good basis a claim that has been questioned, there is no good basis for assuming that reasons to pursue such psychological development will always or even typically be decisive. After all, exerting effort has predictable costs. Realizing a given achievement via more rather than less effortful root will, for example, tend to diminish one's ability and willingness to realize other valuable goals. Yeah, I mean, it's like saying, well, you're going to be mentally lazy if you take pills to, do everything. That's fair. But, like, again, if you're just looking at outcome, then what do you care about achieving other goals? Okay. The second response maintains that even gratuitous effort makes one more deserving. Certain intuitive reactions might seem to support this view. Suppose that Kerr and Lester independently make the same scientific discovery. Both relied on the same sophisticated piece of statistical software in making this discovery. However, as an additional challenge, Kerr had one of her colleagues program a number of bugs into the software. Thus, Kerr had to overcome a number of software glitches to make the discovery, whereas Lester did not. Kerr had to exert more effort. Suppose, moreover, that any reason Kerr had to exert this effort in order to develop desirable character traits was outweighed by countervailing reasons. Perhaps, for example, the effort of overcoming the software bugs also drained her energy in a way that predictably impaired her ability to produce other, smaller scientific insights in the course of making her chief discovery. Though I do not share the intuition myself, I can see that some might wish to claim that Kerr deserves more praise for her achievement than Lester, even though the extra effort she exerted appears to be gratuitous. Yeah, it's like, you're just making things hard for yourself. Why? Okay. It is not clear, however, that this intuition supports the view that gratuitous effort can confer desert, for we can accommodate the intuition without endorsing that view. We may take Kerr to be more deserving of praise than Lester because we take her exertion of gratuitous effort as evidence that, had a greater level of effort been necessary to realize the achievement, say because only buggy software was available, she would have exerted it. This would suggest that it is the counterfactual exertion of non-gratuitous effort by Kerr that confers her greater desert, not her actual exertion of gratuitous effort. Thus, it is possible to explain the intuition that Kerr is more deserving than Lester without attributing a desert conferring effect to gratuitous effort, since it would be at the very least puzzling if gratuitous effort could confer desert. We should tentatively accept this alternative explanation. Yeah, I mean, this makes some sense. It means that this person had the ability to do even more. And so in some sense, you think that person is even greater skilled because they just expended gratuitous effort. So it's doing it with a flourish. So it's like, we do think people are better, better when they not only achieve a goal, but they do it with a flourish. They do it with style. Boxers who box with style. It's not just that they're great boxers. They box with style, which takes extra effort, means that they have already put the extra work in to have greater discipline to not only box, but then they box with style. They have flourish. They work the crowd. It's like then they are doing even more. They don't need to do that, but that shows that they already had the greater ability. And that's why people like them. Again, they did not get that. I don't think they're getting the achievement of winning the boxing match. They get all the same things, but the love that they're getting is over and the top because they did put in the gratuitous effort, but that's something separate. Again, that builds the narrative on top of this stuff, but it shows that they had the greater discipline to not just win, but to win with style, So there is something to this. Okay, author says, I take it then that exerting gratuitous effort confers no desert. Yeah, it's not the desert, it's not winning though, but it's showing that you had the even greater abilities than you demonstrated when winning. It follows that for any given enhancement, there's either an independent of desert objection to the pursuit of enhancement. Yeah, because if you had the greater abilities, you're getting that for other things, not just winning. thus deflating the dialectic significance of the claim that the enhancement undermines desert, or the appeal to diminished effort fails to establish that the enhancement undermines desert, since there is no reason to suppose that effort exerted through eschewing the enhancement would have been non-gratuitous. Okay, so it's like, yeah, if you were able to take the pill and just get it done, then it's like, yeah, if all you're looking at is the achieving something, then just, get it done any which way possible if all you're looking at is outcome. Again, putting extra work in doesn't matter if one's just looking at the outcome. Okay, the argument from shared responsibility. A third argument for the desert thesis is suggested by another claim sometimes advanced as an objection to enhancement. Daniel Toby writes that, quote, with enhancement we achieve an end not through the struggle but with the ease of one selecting an item from a menu. It is the difference between cooking a meal and ordering in. The purchased meal might taste better objectively, but it is not ours. In not working for it, we lose the sense of ownership and accomplishment. End quote. The primary claim here is ostensibly that enhancement might diminish our sense of ownership for our achievements. So this is the hollow victory argument. But Toby also appears to suggest that it is in fact our own achievements less, for he writes that the purchased meal is not ours. Okay, yeah, so this is the technology is doing it, not you. Also. Yeah, so hollow victory. I take Toby to be suggesting here that enhanced individuals are not responsible or not fully responsible for the achievements that their enhancements enable. Responsibility should, for the purpose of this discussion, be understood as attributability. An agent A in this sense is responsible for X if and only if X can aptly be attributed to agent A. Attributability is more than mere causal responsibility, since it necessarily involves agency on the part of the responsible individual. Indeed, it is normally supposed that X is attributable to A because X is a product or expression of A's agency. On the other hand, attributability is less than, though it is probably necessary for, moral responsibility, where the latter is taken to entail moral praise or blameworthiness. An action could be an expression of one's agency and thus attributable to one, though the agency it expresses is morally unremarkable, and one is thus worthy of neither praise nor blame. Yeah, so you can do stuff, and it will be attributable to you. Author says, I take it then that Toby is suggesting that the use of enhancements generally diminishes the degree to which the resulting achievement can be attributed to the agent who undergoes the enhancement. Why think that enhancement diminishes responsibility in this way? One thought might be that the responsibility of enhanced achievers is diminished because some responsibility for the achievements that they realize lies elsewhere. It lies with the designers and perhaps the prescribers of the enhancement. Yeah, it lies with the person who made the technology in some sense. They did it, not the person using the technology. It's like, I didn't go 60 miles an hour. The car manufacturer made a car that can go 60 miles an hour. I merely pressed the pedal. Like, that's it. I didn't make anything that could go 60 miles an hour. Okay, a parallel point can be made regarding the use of external technologies in certain sports. Consider the yachtswoman who wins a regatta because her friend loans her an especially fast boat, or the Formula One driver who wins a Grand Prix because his team provides him with the fastest car available. We might be inclined to say that these competitors are less responsible for their victories than they would have been had they realized them with the standard yacht and car respectively, because more of the responsibility for their achievements is borne by others, the designers and providers of the assistive technologies. The proponent of the present claim takes a similar view about achievements enabled by enhancements. The responsibility of enhanced achievers is reduced because the responsibility is shared with, for example, the designers and distributors of the enhancement technology. Yeah, you're just finding out who has the best drugs. Is it like the U.S. government who has the best drugs, or is it the Russian government who has the best drugs when we go up in the Olympics? This is a question I'm sure people have asked. Like, fair or not. But, like, definitely, doping has happened. If the partial responsibility of others generally diminishes the responsibility of enhanced achievers for the achievements they realize, then we will, I think, have a plausible argument for the desert thesis. Sometimes realizing an achievement confers desert in the sense that, through achieving something, the achiever comes to deserve some of the goods associated with the achievement, or to deserve them to a greater degree. As noted earlier, this is not always so. For example, by realizing evil achievements does not make one more worthy of any associated rewards. but we are limiting ourselves to cases in which realizing an achievement without the aid of an enhancement would make one more deserving of the associated goods. In such cases, we might expect that the degree of desert conferred will tend to diminish one's responsibility for the achievement. A reduction in the degree to which one is responsible for an achievement will tend to reduce the degree to which one deserves the goods attached to the achievement. This meshes well with our intuitions about the yachtswoman and Formula One driver. Yeah, it's like if you just have the fastest car, then you will win the race more on average, more than not. But is that you, or is that the car? As long as everyone else is equally good at driving, I guess. Intuitively, these individuals are not only less responsible for their victories than they would have been had they achieved them without superior equipment, they're also less deserving of the rewards that come with this victory, even if they remain fully entitled to those rewards, for instance because the rules of the competition all allow them to use such superior equipment. If the use of enhancements generally reduce one's responsibility for one's achievements, then there is a prima facie credible argument for the desert thesis. However, it is far from clear that enhancement does reduce responsibility in this way. Intuition about the yachtswoman and the Formula One driver might seem to support this view, but two cases cannot prove the rule. These cases show at most that in some instances reliance on technology diminishes responsibility, but what we need is a justification for the view that reliance on technology, or at least enhancements, will generally, that is always or almost always, have this effect. Let's consider two candidate justifications. The first holds that responsibility is zero-sum. For any achievement, there is a fixed amount of responsibility to go around. Thus, if the designer of an enhancement is partly responsible for a post-enhancement achievement, the user of the enhancement is necessarily not fully responsible for it. The justification has unacceptable implications. Suppose that A, B, and C together rob a corner store, while elsewhere and entirely independently, D robs a different corner store. Each of them, A, B, C, and D, is then partially or fully responsible for the robbing of a corner store. But intuitively, the degree of responsibility of each A, B, and C for robbing the store is more than a third of the degree of responsibility of D. Consequently, we would not, for example, be inclined to punish each of A, B, and C only a third as severely as D. The total degree of responsibility of A, B, and C is greater than that of D, indicating that responsibility for the robbing of a store is not zero-sum. The total amount of responsibility can increase as the number of individuals who share the responsibility increases. Yeah, I mean, this is a thing. It's not going to be zero-sum, but will it be diminished relative to the other people? That's all that matters. Because look, if there's a person that has enhancement here, so we'll split it between the designer and the actor. So there's two people here, and then there's someone over here. There's no enhancement, so they have 100% of the responsibility. But these people have split responsibility. So even if the achievement's amazing, they still have a less than 100% responsibility. So if we're talking relative here, it still would make sense that your split responsibility for winning is not entirely yours. Yeah. The claim that responsibility is zero-sum is implausible. Okay. Where was I? Yeah, so the claim is... So I was reading this, yeah. The claim that responsibility is zero-sum has implausible implications. Let's turn then to the second candidate justification of the view that use of enhancement reduces responsibility. This justification holds that when you use an enhancement to achieve some outcome, you outscore some of the agential processes required to bring about that outcome. All right, so what I said, I think, does disagree with what they said right here. It's that you're supposed to have 100% of the responsibility of your achievement, or 100% of the responsibility of your achievement, given the legal or like institutional, conventional things that you're allowed to do. Like if you have an instructor, you're allowed to have instructors. If you're allowed to have weights, you're allowed to have weights to enhance how strong you are. But like if you have an enhancement, then you are getting something that is cutting into your responsibility, and then it's relatively worse off for you versus somebody else. You're supposed to have 100% of the agential responsibility. So I'm not entirely sure this response is the zero-sum is not entirely right up here, that response. Okay. So this one says you outscore some of the agential process required to bring about that outcome. You employ someone else to invest her agency in realizing the achievement, and in doing so, you diminish the role you play. Oh, so this might be what I'm saying. You diminish the role you played by your own agency. So it's like, yeah, so you're having less than 100% agency. So you're supposed to have only your agency in this sense. Thus, the achievement is less an expression of your agency than would have been than otherwise would have been. When the Formula One driver accepts the faster car from his team, it is not just that he allows the agency of others to influence his level of achievement, he reduces the call for investing his own agency. Without the faster car, he would have had to train harder or make better tactical decisions to achieve the same result. Perhaps those who realize achievements with the aid of enhancements can also be thought of as outsourcing some of the agential tasks required to realize an achievement. Thus, this justification, the outsourcing justification, also runs into difficulties, however. An initial response to it would mirror the quick response to the argument from diminished effort that I considered in the previous section. Even if outsourcing agential tasks would in one way tend to diminish the role played by the enhanced person's own agency in realizing an achievement, it might in other ways tend to augment her investment of agency. For example, the enhancement may operate by augmenting the agential resources that the enhancement user has available to invest. This will most obviously be so in relation to enhancements that diminish psychological impediments to the exercise of agency. Suppose you face a choice between several alternative courses of action, but suppose you have a number of false beliefs about the nature and likely consequences of these options. Suppose also that you are subject to a number of impulses that might lead you to take an option other than the one you reflectively endorse. These false beliefs and impulses are plausibly impediments to your agency. Really? I don't know. It's like if it's directing you, then it's just taking away your agency. Like, why would these be impediments to your agency? Your agency is telling you to do dumb things, and, I guess maybe if you were only defining it as saying that these things are impediments because you have false beliefs, but your false beliefs are your agency too, aren't they? I think so. Yeah, okay, what they say. But a cognition enhancement might help to correct those false beliefs, and a motivation enhancement might attenuate these impulses. A possible upshot of either enhancement would be that your decision becomes more reflective of your agency and less reflective of your impediments to it. Again, this is like saying some very specific stuff that the drugs are doing that I don't think drugs can do. So maybe in the future, but like just saying, okay, this is going to knock out all the bad things in your agency. Well, that's a very weird thing, actually. How would you even know what that is? So this is sort of, I'm not really buying the quick response. Yeah. So author knows this, though. As with the quick response to the argument from diminished effort, I believe that this response may be sufficient to refute the outsourcing justification and thus the argument from shared responsibility, but also as with that response, it will apply to a rather narrow range of enhancements, and it may be susceptible to the objection that what matters is not absolute investment of agency, but investment relative to one's potential to do so. For these reasons, I pursue an alternative response to the outsourcing justification, one that applies more generally and is not susceptible to this possible objection. Now, see, this is going back to the authenticity point I was saying before. Like, if you outsource anything, the point in sports a lot of times when it's fair is to see the possibility of what humans can do. And a lot of times is it. And when we're not just talking about the outcome, we're talking about how we do it, then it's what is the authentically human thing that we can do. Once you're outsourcing it to other people, then you're saying, well, what can a group of people do? That's fine, but that's not what we're asking right here. We're asking what one person can do within these constraints. And that's why it seems like it's cheating when you've got more than one people involved, like you've got a faster car, then you've outsourced some of the work to some other people. And it's not what one person can do, it's what many people can do then. Okay, author says, though, my response begins from the observation that on the outsourcing justification is not ultimately the enhanced individual's increased reliance on others' agency that diminishes her responsibility, it is her decreased reliance on her own agency. On the outsourcing justification, then, cases of enhancement are relatively similar to cases in which a person is less reliant on her own agency, not because she has deployed an enhancement or otherwise outsourced a task to someone else, but for some other reason, for example, through good fortune of circumstance. The scientist who employs a cognitive enhancement and thus diminishes the need to exert her own agency in her work is, from the perspective of the outsourcing justification, equivalent to a scientist who, through no good planning of her own, happens to find herself in an inspiring and distraction-free environment, an environment that allows her to make scientific progress with less need to invest her own agency than a comparable scientist in a less favorable conditions. Note, however, that we would not normally regard an individual as less responsible for her achievements in the sense that The achievements are less attributable to her merely because she, through good fortune, finds herself in a more favorable condition and thus with less need to invest her own agency. Yeah, so it's like you happen to have like a really nice day and you know make some accomplishment. Is that the same thing as someone who was having a really nasty day and took a pill and then was able to get back to work? Again, I think this author needs to be really careful, and I think it's not so careful sometimes, saying, look, if it's the outcome the only thing that matters, because in sports it doesn't seem to be, because you've got narrative that goes with sports. What are the goods that go with sports? It's not just the winning prize. There's more to it. In science, however, a lot of times it is just the getting the right formula, the right chemical, the right whatever. And so there's different kinds of rewards, and different rewards go differently. And so this is uncareful in the sense that rewards are different, and they're not just given for outcome. They're given for narrative too. Having the narrative story is a different kind of struggle. And so that might not matter for the enhancement literature, but it does matter in sport. And so we're getting these things conflated here. And you can see when they switch to the scientist examples from the sport examples is very clear. And that's why I'm bringing it up right here, because at this point, it doesn't matter how you got there. But like in sport, there are different rewards. And that's why different athletes are treated differently, even among like people with better narratives get better rewards, because media matters. Like the narrative matters here. Okay. So author's trying to respond though. There are at least two plausible explanations for why reduced investment of agency does not necessarily reduce responsibility. On the first explanation, full responsibility is retained as long as the investment of agency surpasses some threshold. Thus, there is a range over which a reduction in agency invested confers no reduction in responsibility. Fair, but eh. On the second explanation, only a certain kind of agency needs to be invested in order to fully preserve responsibility. For example, it may be necessary that only the individual exercise executive control over how her abilities, the assistance of others, and any other available resources are marshaled towards the realization of an achievement. On this view, an individual can outsource many individual tasks required for the realization of an achievement without diminishing her own responsibility, provided that she continues to exercise executive control during the drawing on the assistance of others. Yeah, this is times when the outcome is all that matters, not the story. Sure, if you were just trying to solve a math problem or a scientific problem, yeah, you get a lot of responsibility, even if a lot of other people did work. But like if you were like Oppenheimer in charge of, making the nuclear bomb, Oppenheimer gets a lot of credit, but like all the scientists, engineers, and staff deserve tons of, work in making a nuclear bomb. Sure, but like, doesn't matter. But again, that was outcome only, wartime. But when it's sport, then no, it's not exactly the same thing. Okay, thus, for example, if the Formula One driver in our above-mentioned example had been actively involved in deciding which technological innovations in car design to adopt, his responsibility for his Grand Prix victory would not have been diminished by his being provided with the especially fast car. Did they make it themselves, or did they just design it? You're still relying on others. See, this is getting kind of weak here all of a sudden. They could have had like design ideas, and then they would have more insight into this stuff. But did they do the whole technology thing themselves? And is that fair? Now, it might be illegal in not illegal. It may be completely legal in F1 to do this sort of modification to your cars. But if you're trying to do it in a sport where you cannot have different cars, they're all supposed to be stock cars, then it would be somewhat. I'm still thinking you're splitting the responsibility among other people, like because you didn't go and forge that, those new pieces yourself or whatever. Okay, both of these explanations for why reduced investment of agent need not reduce responsibility could be invoked in relation to some enhancement. enhancements. Even where enhancements involve outsourcing tasks to others, thereby reducing the need for the enhanced individual to invest his own agency, they may nevertheless leave the enhanced individual above the threshold level of agency investment required for full responsibility on the first explanation. And provided that that the enhancer continues to exercise his agency in, for example, deciding how to employ enhancements or the ability that they confer, he may retain the kind of executive control required for full responsibility according to the second explanation. Reflection on these cases in which the call for agential investment is diminished by accidents of circumstance suggests that the cases in which enhancements diminish responsibility by diminishing agential investment will be rare. In most cases, those who, through good fortune, enjoy extremely favorable circumstances nevertheless retain full responsibility in the sense of attributability for their achievements, suggesting that only a modest level of agential investment or executive control is required for full responsibility. This suggests that most enhancements will also preserve full responsibility. Yeah, this is the thing. If you're only looking at outcome and you don't care how they got there, then yes. But if it matters how you get there, then no. And I was saying, but then again, the rewards are different, so you're not talking about the same rewards. And I feel like this is getting a little bit conflated here, but it's okay. Okay, getting to the end right here. This is implications, last two pages. Long paper, yep. Implications. I have assessed 3 arguments for the desert thesis. I've argued that the third of these, the argument from shared responsibility, fails to justify the thesis. It is not the case that enhancements generally diminish responsibility. Indeed, I've just suggested that in most cases they do not. By contrast, I've allowed the first 2 arguments, the argument from immoral means and the argument from effort, might succeed. However, I argue that they succeed in showing that an enhancement undermines desert only in cases where there is already an independent objection to the enhancement, and in these cases the appeal to desert loses much of its dialectic interest. That's kind of fair. It is possible, of course, that there is some other argument for the desert thesis I have missed. However, it is not clear what this argument could be, and the literature on the ethics of enhancement is of little help here. In that literature, the desert thesis typically functions as a premise, usually implicit, not as a conclusion. When authors sympathetic to the desert thesis have alluded to considerations that might support it, they have alluded to the argument from diminished effort and the argument from shared responsibility. Let's thus tentatively assume that we have assessed the only credible arguments for the desert thesis. This leaves the proponent of the thesis with 2 options. First, she can rely on the argument from shared responsibility and accept that there is no rational basis for the view that enhancement generally undermines desert, or indeed for the view that it does so only in more than a very narrow range of cases. Most enhancements preserve full responsibility. Second, she can turn to either the argument from immoral means or the argument from diminished effort. However, she is then forced to concede that the desert thesis either fails because there is no general independent objection to enhancement, or is little dialectic significance because there is such an objection. More broadly, she is then forced to concede that desert-based explanations for why any particular enhancement is morally problematic will either fail or have little dialectic significance. Nevertheless, my argument does draw attention to some cases in which use of enhancements will undermine desert. One of these cases where the enhancements dramatically diminish the investment of agency on the part of the enhanced individual. That's fair. They said this. And this is what I was saying. I'm saying it's maybe more dramatic than they're giving it credit for, but they did say that. Another is where the enhancement reduces the amount of effort that the enhanced individual exerts, but there were, in fact, good independent reasons to exert that effort. One such case will be where the enhancement is employed in the context of an activity whose value lies, at least in part, in its effortfulness, which I suspect is true in many sporting endeavors. In such contexts, there is an independent objection to avoiding effort, and thus to pursuing an enhancement. Doing so undermines the value of the activity in which one is engaged. Yeah. So they're finally coming back to the objection that I was saying. It's you can't actually make this objection in sports because it diminishes the authenticity. You're seeing what people can do, not what technology can do. And that's fair. In sports, that's what you're looking at. And it's not the effort, but you're trying to find out what people can do under different circumstances. So that's all right. So they at least did get back to it. So this is in some sense cutting their thesis down. When you are only looking at outcome, then it doesn't matter how it's the ends justify the means. But that's just an old consequentialist trope. There's nothing new about that. Ends justify the means if you're only looking at the outcome of end happiness. This is just a consequentialist paper in that case. So the question is there an independent thing? That would be sort of a saying when do ends not justify the means? Well, when there's a reason why, and that's what they're saying about this independent thing for not enhancing it, because then at that point the ends do not justify the means, because the ends they're sort of multimodal. You're not just looking at the end, like going faster, you're looking at how it was done. You want to know something about the person that was doing it, and that matters. So it's when you have multimodal outcomes, really. You've got both the speed of the racer and how they achieved it. That's what's important. And so it's not only, so you have to be careful here. And so you can get an objection, you can get counterexamples to all the things, but you have to say, look, it's not going to work 100% of the time, and not a lot of the times when we want it to. There is dessert in sports because it's supposed to be fair, because there is more than just winning the game. There's how you won, because you're supposed to be showing something else. You're supposed to be showing something about the people, not about the outcome of the game. In, baseball, football, basketball, it's not just the final score. It's, in some sense, you want to watch the game. If it was just the final score, people wouldn't watch sports. They would just look at the box score at the end of the day. It's clearly not just the score. So, anywho, let's do. I don't know how many people are still awake at this point, and it's very hot in this room at this point. But let's do the review. Here's the review. Anyone who here's our emotes, and review is now active. So here's what we do. Okay. DCI says yes, and gave a brain dance. It's just a brain dance, lowercase b, capital D. But yeah, thanks you, DCI. I'll fix that later if you don't fix it yourself. Let's see. Does this have a brain dance? Fun ideas? Yeah, we could say it has kind of fun. Now, this big claim that shrivel up, they did kind of pull back at the end. They did kind of pull back right here at the end, where they were saying, oh, are there independent reasons? Well, yes, in sports. And then it did kind of back off their big claims. What they said was, can you justify the dessert thesis universally? And the answer, of course, it's very hard to make anything universal in this, and they had counterexamples, but it basically, in the end, when you want it to be in sports, then you have to do examples. Yes, and then we've got, what is it about us? That's a good point, DCI. The Scream, is there existential content here? Why do we... This had a lot to do with the agentality. What is it to be agental? To have agency. That's kind of what it is to exist. We're talking about authenticity here. So we're getting the Scream. So I agree with that. We're going to get a Scream. Ivan Neo's yes. Oh, and giving it the knife. Because the argumentation then, and some fun ideas. So I'm going to give it, let's see. We're going to get a Nog Scream, because we had the agency stuff here. A little bit, not a lot. So it's only getting one. It's going to get a grapes for me. Because grapes. I'm not surprised, because this is a big thing. No Ouroboros. Nothing deep here. It's going to get, 2 Screams. Nog Scream, because that's basically what it was. It was on agental things. Were there fun ideas in this one? I don't know. I don't know if there was anything too fun. I did like how accessible it was. This person was pretty accessible. I thought they could have used some good examples. Again, they were saying stuff and I was throwing examples in every so often, and they didn't have as many as I would like. They had some weird names, and then they had a few examples, but I don't know if they had a ton of fun examples. I'm not giving them no brain dance, but I'm gonna agree. We're gonna give a Nog knife, because they basically went and did a lot of their argumentation was a little slice and dicey. They went through, they cut everything up. So that's what we're getting. We're getting we're gonna get this, and what do I think? Is this a worth reading paper? Yeah. This is going to get a vote yay. Because it's a little bit shocking, as they noted, that this had not been noted before, specifically in the literature. And so that's good. Okay, DCI says, it was brain dance for me because it made me think of the relevance of AI-generated content being claimed as someone's work. Fair. They didn't say anything like that. That was on you, that's good. But that's a good thought that it did bring up, because we've been talking about a lot of this stuff in terms of AI generated content. Who gets the stuff? I mean, we were looking at AI generated content. Oh yeah, sorry. Well, I can't show you right now because the review's still active, but we were looking at who gets credit for that. Now, Cinesemiotics puts effort in. You heard him say it's not so easy to make good images. He has to put effort in, but it's also the designers of the AI programs and the art that was originally in the training data. And so there's a lot of people that put it in. Now, who gets responsibility for that? Well, this is the good shared responsibility one, where it's not Cinesemiotics for, making new the paint. He didn't do it in either digital or traditional art, but he just asked the program. It did that, used the programs, but it's definitely shared responsibility at that point. But he gets part of that responsibility by having good prompts, and so does Streep for that matter, because we were bringing up the discussion. So this is thank you for reviewing, Ivan and DCI. Really appreciate it, for participating. If anyone else is still around, I'll leave the screen up for another minute or two. And yeah, but that's the thing. That's a good thought, DCI. Very good thought. It's just been what we've been talking about lately so much. It's really dominated the sort of space, at least in our community. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think they could have, if it was me, they could have used some more fun examples in this. There's plenty of fun examples. I was talking about showboating and boxing. Showboating and boxing is a great example for here. Great example. It has a long history of showboating and boxing. I mean, we've got Muhammad Ali, showboating and boxing, showing that he's wasting effort while beating someone up. That's a fantastic thing. Does he deserve more of the prize money for doing it? There is no more prize money for showboating and boxing. Did he get a lot more rewards for showboating? Yes, he did. Prince Nassim, well, yeah. Who's Nassim? I don't know that person. But this is the thing. I only have a very limited understanding of anything. But that's the thing. Why was Muhammad Ali the greatest? Because he could do both. He was doing both the winning and putting in the extra effort, which was winning other games. He was winning the social media battle, the media battle of the day. He was winning the social battle of the day. He was doing political stuff. He was doing a bunch of things all at once. He had all this, mental ability and physical prowess to do all these things. And so it's did he deserve the admiration that he got from the public? The answer is yes, but those rewards were not just boxing rewards. Those were other rewards. So there's more than one good that's being thrown around. And that's one of these things where you might have remember at one point, there's some sort of good G that you get. That's an obfuscation, in my opinion, of what the goods are, because it's not so clear that you can just give a good by saying G. All right. Okay, but that's it for this. Thank you all, and these reviews will be recorded and posted on a site eventually when I get around to it.